Hi guys, Drea from Aloha Plant Life, and today I'm going to be taking you through my top 12 DIY houseplant parent hacks that work. Because there are a lot of bizarre plant hacks that I've heard about and seen in videos that I would never recommend trying, so I want to give you some that hands down do work. They make my life easier. I hope they will make your life easier, and that's why I'm sharing them with you today. And this is going to be an upcycling edition. So everything that I am going to be showing you today is going to be featuring upcycled items, and these are items that I always save because I always end up using them in my houseplant care. And the last one on this list is going to be a huge help to anybody who is a chronic overwaterer or underwaterer, so make sure you stay tuned for that one. So let's go ahead and jump into the first plant parent hack on this list. And so I'm sure a lot of you have heard about using mosquito bits or mosquito dung when watering your plants to help combat fungus gnats. I personally do use mosquito dung. However, I've had a few issues with that. For starters, they leave behind all these little crumbs in the watering can, and it gets kind of messy, and it's really hard to clean all of those out at the end of the day. Number two, eventually the mosquito dung kind of gets smaller and smaller in size to the point where then inevitably when I go to water, it gets stuck in the spout of the watering can, and now the water is barely coming out. And if you're using mosquito bits, they're already in bit size, and so you're gonna have a similar issue. So a real easy way to get around that is to save and use mesh bags and put your dung or your bits into those mesh bags before putting them into your watering can. So for example, I have here a little mesh bag, and this used to have potpourri in it. I don't even know where I got it from. I really don't remember, but it's been sitting in my sock drawer for years with potpourri in it. The potpourri really didn't have any smell to it anymore, so I started using this for my mosquito dung. So basically all I do is I take the piece of the dung that I break off to use in my water, I put it in this bag, I seal the bag up, I plop it into the watering can, and I just leave it there until it completely has dissolved, and then I do it all over again. This way I'm not constantly having to fish the dung out when I go to water. I'm not having to deal with that crumb situation. I don't have to deal with it getting stuck inside of the spout when it gets too small. And when I do need to pull it out, it's real easy to just fish that bag out, and I know that I've gotten everything out of there. And pretty much any type of mesh bag will do as long as it is a fine mesh. Obviously, if it was a bigger mesh, then the crumbs would be able to get through the mesh and you'd still have that problem. And while we're on the topic of mesh bags, let's move into upcycling plant parent hack number 2 on the list. So perhaps you've heard about the coffee filter hack for preventing dirt from coming through drainage holes. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Let's just logically think through this coffee filter hack. First of all, it's paper. Eventually it's gonna get funky, it's gonna degrade, it's not gonna last over time. Number 2, it's designed not to let water through very fast. It's supposed to be slow drip when you're making coffee, which means that filter's actually holding water in your pot, and that can lead to an overwatering situation. So please do not use coffee filters to try to keep the dirt from falling out through your drainage holes. Instead, you're gonna use a different type of mesh bag from the one we just talked about. So when you're shopping for groceries, I'm sure you've seen it before, a lot of vegetables come in mesh bags. Onions is the number one thing that comes to my mind when I think about it, but I did pick up some fingerling potatoes last weekend, and they came in a little mesh bag as well. So as you can see, it's just a fine mesh here, but it's not too fine that it's not going to allow water through, but it is fine enough that it's going to help stop that dirt from coming through. So basically what you're going to do is once you've removed your veggies from that mesh bag, you're going to cut that mesh bag into round sections that are the appropriate size for the bottom of whatever pot you're using. You're just going to set that mesh down into that pot. It is now covering your drainage holes. You can add your dirt in, and it's going to help to prevent that dirt from falling through. Now, a little bit of dirt is probably still going to get through that, but once again, you don't want it to be such a fine mesh that it's going to be trapping water in there, because that's just going to lead to an overwatering situation. So moving on to upcycling plant parent hack number 3 on the list, and actually this item is going to be used for number 3, 4, and 5 on this list because it's just that versatile, and that is the good old-fashioned chopsticks. That's right, and I don't care if you've used the chopsticks, still save them. You can clean wooden chopsticks off and they will be fine to use for the purposes that I'm going to be discussing today. So one great thing that chopsticks can be used for is to aerate soil. So over time, soil has a tendency to get compacted down, and the more compacted down it gets, the less oxygenation that those roots can get, and that can lead to root rot. So you can take a chopstick and just gently probe the soil, poking holes in it to help aerate and allow more oxygen into those roots. Now, along those same lines of helping to prevent root rot, you can use chopsticks to make sure that you're not watering a plant before it's time to be watered again, especially if it is a bigger plant in a bigger pot where you can't get your finger far enough down in there to test the moisture level in the soil. So in this case, basically all you do is you take a chopstick, you stick it as far down into that soil as you can, let it sit there for a good 10 minutes, pull it out and see how far down that chopstick is wet. This kind of works like if you're testing a cake to see if it's ready yet and you stick the little cake tester down in there and you pull it out to see if it has any wet batter on it. Same basic concept applies here, and based on that moisture line on that chopstick, you'll now know whether it's time to water your plant or not. But the third use that I want to talk about for chopsticks today, and this is number 5 on our plant parent hack list, and it's the one that most of us are probably going to use chopsticks for, is to help stake up a plant that's having a hard time staying up on its own. So in this case, you're just pressing the chopstick into the soil close to where that plant needs the support. Make sure it's down in there far enough to be secured, and then you're going to secure the plant to the chopstick. And that brings us to the number 6 upcycled item on our houseplant parent hack list today, and that is the good old-fashioned twist tie. And this particular twist tie is a plastic variety, a soft plastic variety. It came wrapped around an electrical cord for a product that I had ordered. Save these whenever you get these. And I mean, these are like the ones you really want, these soft plastic ones, versus those paper and metal ones you get at the grocery store. The paper and metal ones will work, but you're running a little bit more risk of possibly damaging the surface area of the stem of your plant. These ones are really just a little bit safer for the plant, in my opinion. But back to staking up our plant. Once you have that chopstick in place, you're just going to take one of your twist ties you've saved and gently wrap it around that chopstick and around the stem of that plant and then twist it into place. But make sure that you don't get it too tight. You want room for the plant to grow and room for it to move a little bit if it needs to. So moving on to item number 7 on our houseplant parent hack list, and that ties into this twist tie because this twist tie, as I stated, was around an electrical cord, and that electrical cord came in this plastic bag. So I save plastic bags like this that are relatively large because I use them to cover my propagations that need increased humidity. So I will take a bag like this, and let me just specify that it does need to be a clear bag so that sunlight can get through to it. But I'll basically take this bag, and all I'll do is once I've potted up a propagation, and if I know it's one that needs extra humidity, I'm just gonna slip this bag over the top of it in order to trap in that extra humidity. So number 8 on our plant parent hack list involves another upcycled item that I always save, and that is glass jars or glass containers in general in order to use them for propagating plants in water. So I actually have here a glass bottle, and this is the bottle that my daily vitamins that I take comes in, and it is a brown glass, but it is see-through even though it's opaque, so it will work for propagating plants in water. And so basically all I've got to do to prep this to be able to use it to propagate plants in water is remove this label, and in my experience I usually have to get a little bit of Goo Be Gone out to get it off. Give it a good wash down with some soap and water, and it's ready to go. So let's move on to number 9 on the list, and that is going to be to save your bottle caps. And specifically, I have been using bottle caps to water propagate corms. Now, if you don't know what corms are or what propagating corms involves, don't worry because I actually am working on a future video for you guys right now outlining the full process from start to finish for propagating corms. So be on the lookout for that in the near future. But until then, here's a little sneak peek of how I use simple little bottle caps such as this in order to start corms in water. So the thing about water propagating corms is you don't actually want to get them fully submerged. And that's why shallow bottle caps like this work really well, because they're not so deep that you're going to be covering the corm completely. You can just shallow half cover the corms with water. So definitely a useful way to reuse bottle caps. So moving on to upcycled item number 10 on our houseplant parent hack list. And perhaps you have seen people storing their soil and their other soil amendments in large Tupperware containers and things of that nature. I prefer to upcycle containers for that purpose. So specifically, I have been saving cat litter buckets. That's right, cat litter buckets. So the litter that I buy my cat Toby comes in these kind of large buckets, and I will show you right now what I am talking about. Hopefully I can get it all the way on screen for you. So this is a pretty large bucket for cat litter, right? But this is perfect for storing potting soil and other potting amendments. So I actually do have several of these. One has my cacti and succulent soil in it. One has my regular premium potting mix in it. But it's just an excellent way to store those items. And I actually do like that these are taller square containers versus the wide, lower to the ground Tupperwares a lot of people use, because I feel like that way they're taking up a little bit less space because they're taking up more vertical space versus horizontal space. Now, quick reminder, if you are storing your soil or soil amendments in any kind of plastic container, always make sure you let them dry out completely before you actually close them up in that container. Otherwise, you run the risk of developing mold and fungus and other things within that soil. So number 11 and number 12 on our list actually tie in together. So I'm actually going to start with number 11, and this is the one I was telling you about at the beginning of the video that I feel like is an absolute lifesaver for those of us who have tendencies to overwater or underwater. And that is to save and reuse clear plastic food containers as pots. So I actually have here a container of fruit that I picked up at the grocery store the other day. And this is the perfect kind of food container I'm talking about that you can turn into a clear pot. And clear pots are going to make your life a lot easier if you have watering issues, because now you're going to be able to see better if that soil is dry or if that soil is still wet. And that is going to be a game changer in helping you learn how to water more consistently and more appropriately. The other advantage to this is you're going to be able to see how healthy those roots are looking. So if they look like they're starting to get a little funky, like maybe some root rot starting, you're going to be able to address it quicker than you would be perhaps if you were not using a clear pot. But how exactly do we turn this into a functional pot? I'm sure you're wondering. So once you're done using this container, you would want to give it a good soapy water clean out, let it dry, and then the only thing you really need to do after that is create drainage holes. So there's several ways you can create drainage holes in a plastic container like this. This is, as you can see, a pretty sturdy container, so you could actually drill drainage holes into it. Or if you happen to have a soldering iron, that is another easy way to create a hole. You just poke it through there. It basically just burns a hole into that pot for you. And if you don't have any of those items, I will tell you right now that soldering iron I was showing you is relatively cheap. I think I ordered it for like $10 or something on Amazon. If I can find the link, I'll link it down below in the description for you guys. But once you've got those drainage holes created, you're just going to treat this like a regular pot. You're going to go ahead and pot your plant up in there like normal. And then obviously you would want to put this in a more decorative pot, such as a cover pot. And that brings us to number 12 on our plant parent hack list for today. And that is using food containers to help elevate cover pots. So I have here yet another food container that I think I had used to get something from a salad bar at a grocery store. And so this is just a short one, so really too short to plant a plant in, but this works great for elevating plants in cover pots that are too deep for them. So for example, this pot is too deep for this 6-inch plant, so I need to elevate it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this plastic container, I'm going to set it in the bottom of the pot, I'm going to set the plant in its nursery pot on top of that, and now it's at the level I need it to be for that cover pot. So yet another great way to upcycle used plastic food containers. So I hope you guys have enjoyed these DIY plant parent hacks that I've shared with you today. If you are using any of these already or are using some that I haven't mentioned today, comment down below and let us know. And if you've not yet hit that like and or subscribe button down below, please do so. And I look forward to seeing you guys again next time. Aloha!